Hello and welcome to the launch of this new initiative, which is called Decoding PSIR through Answer Writing. Now, why am I doing this? The biggest purpose that I have is to make this YouTube channel the one-stop solution for everything related to PSIR. If you have taken PSIR as an optional subject, you will get complete guidance on this channel. Secondly, what is it that you can gain by watching all these videos in this series specifically? Number one, we will be focusing on answer writing. So you will get to see how to write answers to PSIR questions, because writing answers to questions of the mains examination in the optional subject is very different as compared to GS 1, 2 and 3, and you will see how. Secondly, PSIR is one of those subjects where a lot of theory based questions keep on getting repeated in various ways. So when we discuss these previous year questions, you will get an idea of how to write such answers if similar kind of a topic appears once again. Thirdly, I am not just going to tell you the answers to the question. With each and every question that we take up, we will first try and understand the topic. So it will be more of a lecture on that topic first, so that you get clarity on that topic, and then we will come down to writing that answer. This is what I want to achieve. Now, what I want from you, first, obviously, if you are watching this, if you like this, do hit the subscribe button. If you have any of your aspirant friends preparing for the UPSC exam who have taken PSIR as an optional or who plan to take PSIR as an optional, please bring them here. You can share this link with them. Also comment on what are the other topics that you would want me to cover. You can share this video with other friends as well. As always, if you want to get the PDF of this lecture, I will be uploading that on the Telegram channel. All that you need to do is look at the description of the video. You will find a link of the Telegram channel. Join that and you can get PDF of all these lectures. So this is class number 1. I really hope that you like it and you take something away from this. So what are we going to do in this class? Let's see what is the pattern that we will take up. So basically, we will first take a question that UPSC has asked in PSIR. This is a question which was asked in 2015. It was a 20-mark question. 250 words was the word limit, and it was question number 3A. If you look at the paper of 2015, question 3A was this. So it's a 20-mark question, a long question. The question is, Plato was an enemy of the open society pauper. Now there are two ways to look at this question. Some people will find it difficult, and I'll tell you why they'll find it difficult. The reason is, if you look at the PSIR syllabus and you look at the people that you need to study about political thinkers, you need to study about Plato. That is fine. But to study about Popper is not really in the syllabus. Who is this? This is actually Karl Popper. He is also, or he has been rather, a political scientist. Died recently in 1990s only. So he has been teaching in a lot of universities. All through the 1990s, he wrote many books, especially during and after the Second World War. He wrote many books criticizing Plato, Marx, etc. So many people, when they look at the syllabus of PSIR, they will say Karl Popper is not in the syllabus, so I did not read about him. That is fine. But what he said was about Plato, and Plato is a part of the syllabus. That is why it becomes tricky. And that is why I always say, you have to look at previous year questions to understand. Because if you look at the syllabus and you will see, oh, I'll read about Plato, whatever is written, but I'll not read about Karl Popper, then you will not be able to answer such questions. So what exactly is this? Karl Popper made this famous quote, Plato was an enemy of the open society. Before we go into writing of this answer, I'm assuming you don't know anything about this topic. So let's first understand this topic. What exactly is this all about? What did he say? Why is Karl Popper related to it? So Karl Popper, as I told you, a famous political scientist. He was also a teacher, taught in many universities, wrote many books. Amongst the books that he wrote, there is a famous book that was published in 2 different volumes. The name of the book was The Open Society and Its Enemies. So basically, this is Mr. Karl Popper. He wrote this book. The book name was The Open Society and Its Enemies. It came in 2 volumes. First volume was about Plato specifically, where he talked about Plato's philosophy, why is it bad for open society. In the second book, he talked about Hegel, Karl Marx, etc. So what does he write in his book? The simple idea that he says in his book is, that there have been thinkers in the past such as Plato, Karl Marx, that have been against the idea of open society. Now when he said against open society, what do you mean? He means to say people such as Plato were against liberalism. They were against an open society. The thoughts of Plato, the thoughts of Karl Marx are against an open society, are against liberalism. They don't want to give freedom. So let's first understand what did he say, and then we'll go back to the answer and how to write it. So they said he wrote this book. The book's name was Open Society and Its Enemies. It came in 2 volumes mainly. First volume was about Plato and the second volume was about Hegel and Karl Marx. These were published in 1945, so the end of the Second World War is when most of his works came out. We will focus on what he said about Plato, so that's to get an idea about what to write in this answer. So what does he write about Plato? He says in simple terms that Plato's philosophy is against the idea of liberal democracy, against the idea of open society. Before I go ahead, I am assuming here that you have read about Plato. If you have not read about Plato and you are very new to this, I do not think that you will be able to understand what we will be discussing in the next 10-15 minutes. If you have read about Plato, then great, it will be much easier for you to understand. But if you are just starting and you have not read about Plato, I will suggest you to either read notes or get some classes, read about Plato, and then you will be able to understand better. Now, as you know, Plato gave a lot of important theories. We'll focus on 2 of them right now. First, his famous theory about justice. When he was asked how a society will have justice, his idea was, in order to have justice in the society, society should be divided into 3 parts and people should not interfere with each other. There should be a ruling class, people who are meant to rule, people who are meant to be the kings or the rulers. Then there should be a soldier class, people who are meant to be soldiers, people who are meant to defend. And then there was in the end the working class or the producing class, whatever you want to call them. So basically he divided the society into these 3 parts, and Plato said that none of them should interfere with each other. Ruling class should only focus on ruling, soldier class should only focus on attacking or defending, producing working class should only focus on their production and nothing else. That was his first big idea. His second big idea, as you would remember, was the idea of philosopher king. Because one of the biggest questions at his time was, who should be the ruler? Should the ruler be a position that should be given as per hereditary? Means the son of the king should become the next king or not? If not, then how should we decide who should be the next ruler? So the idea that he came up with, that in a successful society, philosopher should be the king or the king should be the philosopher. He gave a very elaborate structure of his education system, and he talked about how you have to look into what are the qualities in the soul of a person. Depending upon the qualities, you have to identify who is it that is ideally suited for studying for a long time, who is ideally suited for the person who can search for truth. That person will be taught for 35, 40 years, 45 years. That person will be converted into a philosopher, and only that person should rule. That means the ruling power should not pass on hereditary. It should be based on the concept of philosopher king. So basically, one person who has been given each and everything from the education system so that all the evils are removed. He also said the best kind of ruler is the one who does not want to be a ruler. If I want to be a ruler very bad, that means I want the power that comes with it. I want all the stature that comes with it. That is not a good sign. The best ruler would be the ones who would not want to become the ruler. So either philosopher should become king or king should become philosopher. That is the ideal position. So basically he talked about all these theories. Karl Popper in his book criticizes all of this. He says by putting all these theories, Plato is proving that he is against the idea of a liberal society. He said that Plato, Karl Marx, all of them follow the principle of historicism. He said that Plato, Karl Marx follow the principle of historicism. What exactly is historicism? It's an important word that you must know. Historicism is a simple idea that means when you are going through a problem right now, for example, and you are trying to see how to solve this problem, Rather than thinking about the future, you take lessons on the history. You read books about history and you see that earlier when such a problem emerged, how was it solved? You take examples from different scholars in the past. How did they solve these issues? So when you take examples from history and then try to recreate that to solve the present situation, that example or that phenomena is called historicism. So when you depend on cultural, social practices of the past, then you depend on ideas and beliefs of the past, rather than thinking that now you have to do something new. When you believe in the past and think that that is the only truth, that is called historicism. Karl Popper said that both Marx and Plato are people who looked into history for each and everything. Rather than giving a new emerging society a new idea, rather than forming a new future for everyone, they just used to look in the past, which is not really a good sign going forward. What did he criticize about Plato? He said that Plato's approach gave poor results because Plato followed the theory or doctrine of the chosen people. What does the doctrine of chosen people mean? When the kings used to rule in ancient history, let's say Greek cities, when the kings used to rule, and when someone used to question the king, that how is it that you have so much power? The answer that the kings used to give was that the God has chosen me. I am the chosen one from the God, so I can do whatever I want. How does a king justify giving orders to cut someone's arm? How can the king justify the orders to take away anyone's home, take away anyone's property? The kings used to justify all their actions by arguing that they are the chosen ones and no questions can be asked to them. This was also called as a theory of divine right. The theory of divine right means the king used to say that I have the divine right to rule. The God has chosen me. This is wrong. Because if the God would have been just kind enough on one single person, why did the God not choose anyone else? Karl Popper says that this is something similar that Plato does with the concept of philosopher king. He says that philosopher king is a similar concept where you are giving all the power in the hands of one single person. This is what Plato said. Plato said, make the most learned person, the most educated person as your king. Give him unlimited powers. Don't ask him any questions. Trust him. Trust your education system that you have given him good enough values and you will not have to worry about anything else. That was his idea. So Karl Popper says that this problem of divine right, Plato continued that method, just gave him a different name. They called him the philosopher king. Plato's philosopher king had unchallenged superiority. Plato was a person who wanted to control everything in the society. Again, if you have read about Plato, you would know. Plato was concerned about how population should be for the benefit of the society. Means, as per Plato, it is essential for a society to have the best kind of citizens. How will you have the best kind of citizens? If the best male with the best value system marries and impregnates the best female, when they reproduce a kid, it will be the best person for the society. That was Plato's idea. Plato did not believe in the concept of marrying, of one person should marry the other person, they should have a kid. No. He said that population of a society should be for the benefit of the society. Only those people should be born who have the best genes. Only those people should be born who have the best chance of helping the society. So Plato wanted to control the entire process of how people are born in the society. It was not about marrying and one person impregnating the other. No. He wanted to control how people will take their sexual relationship with each other. He wanted to control how two people or which two people will be the ones who will come together. The best quality people should come together to reproduce the best quality person for the society. So Karl Popper says Plato regarded people as breeding dogs, animals like horses, etc. This is against the idea of liberalism. In a liberal society, in an open society, you allow people to have a free hand. Rather, in these kind of cases, he is saying that Plato wanted forcefully to tell people who would you reproduce with, who would you not reproduce with. So again, this goes against the entire idea of an open society. He does not stop there. He says that Plato said natural rulers should rule, natural slaves should be slaves. Basically, Plato said that when people are born, their soul has certain qualities. If a person's soul has a certain quality of ruling, that person should be then given to the education system, taught everything about ruling, so that that person goes on and becomes the ruler. On the other hand, if your soul at the time of your birth does not display any characteristics of a ruler, does not display any characteristics of a soldier, then you should go to the working class or the producing class only. That again is something that Karl Popper did not agree with. How can you ascertain by looking into someone's soul that you are meant to be a working class or you are meant to be the ruling class? This entire idea of Plato of not allowing people to choose, not allowing people a free hand, not allowing people to make their own decisions, all that was criticized by Karl Popper. This was, again, these were the pointers that he had in his book while criticizing Plato. He also talked about, as I said, idea of Plato's philosopher king, because Plato gave complete powers to philosopher king. Plato trusted his education system so much that once philosopher king has been given the entire education, he will do no wrong. That is a problem. Karl Popper says maybe the king uses lies and deceit just to be in power, then what would you do? Plato emphasized on being like a god because he was the one who wanted to decide, or state would be the one who would decide who will reproduce with whom. So basically Karl Popper said Plato interfered with nature, Plato interfered with God, and Plato wanted the society, the government to decide who will reproduce with whom. All these are the criticisms of Plato that Karl Popper had written in his book. So this is the idea. Now this was the topic. After all this knowledge, now I hope you're ready to write the answer. So this is what we'll be doing in these lectures. We'll be taking up a question, we will discuss that topic, and then we'll come to the answer. Now the question again was, Plato was an enemy of the open society. Popper comment. Usually, thinkers based questions are like this only. They will give you one statement or one line and then tell you comment or discuss, etc. The pattern of writing these questions is not the same in the GS. In the GS part, as we have been discussing in our mains answer writing initiative, in the GS question you write an introduction, you write a main body, you write a conclusion. In these kind of questions, it's not about an introduction or a main body, etc. You can think of this like more of a short essay, because you just have to expand on this statement. Think of it like a small essay rather than trying to write a specific introduction, because there is nothing to introduce here. You might, if you want, in the introduction, for example, you might write about his book, that Karl Popper published a book in 1945 titled Open Society and Its Enemies, where he criticized the thoughts of Plato. That can be an introduction if you want. But the main body and other parts has to be more of a short essay kind of a thing. That is why in optional, in these kind of topics, especially theory based topics, it is not really advisable to write point wise. Paragraph wise would also work. So let's see. So we start with the fact, as I said, that in his book Open Society and the Enemies, Karl Popper talked about three philosophers, Plato, Hegel and Marx, who he believed to be the enemies of the open society. So you can consider this as the intro part. Now in the main body, we will talk about 4 or 5 points about how he criticized Plato. In one point you can write about how he criticized the theory of philosopher king. In some other point you can write about how he criticized Plato's education system. Then you can write about how he criticized Plato's idea of breeding, how people will be born. Those are the different ideas that we discussed. These are different points that you can write. So basically he talks about whatever Plato has written in the Republic. He talks about the fact how it is incompatible with open society. So first, Plato talks about the authoritarian rule, giving unlimited powers to philosopher king. Plato talks about having a very rigid caste system. People are not even allowed to change their professions. Throughout their life, they have to stick to their professions. If you are from the working class, you have to be a working class person all throughout your life. If you are from the soldier class, you have to be there. So it's obviously against the idea of liberalism. Then you can talk about how Plato's idea was against democracy. Plato favored rule by select individuals by assuming that these individuals should have unlimited power. This again goes against today's idea of liberal democracy. So you can write point wise if you want to, but here in mains answer writing in optional, even if you are writing point wise, the points cannot be just one-liners. That is my idea. Even if you, let's say, want to write point wise here, writing 4 or 5 points in the main body, how we criticize Plato, you can do that. But it cannot be just one line in a point, which you usually do in the GS paper. So it has to be short paragraphs only. 1 point and then 2-3 lines there. First point can be philosopher king. Second point can be the breeding system. Third can be education system. Fourth can be the system of the government. Plato was against democracy. Plato was against democracy for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest reasons was that Plato's teacher Socrates died because of democracy. Because majority of the people were against Socrates, so Socrates had to die. So Plato was always against the idea of democracy. Because Plato thought in a democracy, and again I am not drawing a connection to anyone here, I am just saying what Plato had said. Plato said that the biggest problem with democracy is that in a democracy, the best person will not win the election. The best speaker will win the election. Means, in a democracy, all that I need to do is to convince the people that I am speaking the truth. It might be truth, it might not be truth. I just have to convince you. If I convince you that I am speaking the truth, you can vote for me and I win. So the problem that Plato had with democracy was not necessarily would the best person win. It is the best speaker who will win, and that creates a big problem. Then you can talk about other things, how Plato suppressed individual liberty. Plato did not really consider anyone intelligent enough to decide on his or her own. This is how you can conclude the argument. That that Popper was criticizing Plato, but it did not mean that he rejected his ideas outright. He argued his ideas, he wanted to correct them, and that is what he has written in his book. So that is a kind of an answer that you write here. As you can see in the optionals, mini essays is a form that you usually write, especially in thinkers related questions. Thinker, theory based questions, it's more of a mini essay that you write, 3-4 points. And this is how we will run this particular series. I hope it was helpful for you, and I really hope that you like it. Do tell me your feedback in the comment section. Once again, thank you so much for watching in. Do hit the subscribe button if you have not hit it so far. Join the Telegram group. I'll be uploading the PDF there. I'll be bringing lecture 2 as soon as possible. But again, I will be as regular in this series as you are. So I want your regularity. I want your comments. I want your subscription button there to be hit. And I'll see you very soon. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.